Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of 4Fusion Friday. It's Friday evening, first Friday of the month. Happy July 4th. It's now July 5th to all of our friends here in the States. Hope everybody had a great day yesterday and ready to listen to some discussion about some really cool fusion albums. Let me introduce the crew. Of course, the two founders of the show, George Lamie and Eric Porter. And joining us once again, our comrade from In the Prague seat. He's live from Mexico, Mr. Louis Nasser. What's going on, everybody?
Honored to be here as usual. Thank you, guys.
Honored to have you.
We don't have you once in a while. The fans revolt.
Well, I guess that we need to keep the fans in non-revolt mode then.
That's right. Very important. Very important. So, of course, before we get started with our four square of releases to talk about, George is going to start everything off with some George's picks, and we will get that started in just a second. So, George, I'll turn it over to you. Let me pull up George's.
Like everybody knows, the lifeblood of any genre is new music. There's no, you can't keep it going without new releases. So we have three this month that I think definitely bear attention.
All right, George, while this is doing its magic here on my end, you can start talking about the first one because it's taking forever here.
All right. The first one is a band called Celebrina. The album is called Sonambulando, which means what, Louis?
Sleepwalking.
It is the third album from this band. They're from Sao Paulo. They're a septet. I would liken this to Snarky Puppy with more presence and bite out of the guitar and a definite Brazilian tinge to the music, particularly in the horn work. A lot of those big Latin horn hits, really cool tunes. They're a songwriting band. They're not about flash playing. Definitely check this one out.
I like that album cover. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
If that at all sounds good to you, you need to check it out. Second one is Christian Tamblay, self-titled. Looks to be the debut from this young drummer. Everybody in the band is young. They got a quintet recording. My buddy that tipped me off to this shared the video for the lead track, Against All Odds, and whoa. I mean, this kid really's got that Dave Weckl vibe with all that crisp double stroke playing, all the fills, the big hits. There's more info on it on his YouTube page, so at least go watch the video for Against All Odds. I think if you're a Weckl fan, you definitely have to hear this. And the last one is Daniel Weiss, Vortex, another cool cover. Second album from this Israeli guitar player. I never heard the first one, but I'm going to be digging in now because this is great. Looks to be an all Israeli cast, good players, but no spotlight stealers. This is about songwriting. Very good songs. Check it out on Bandcamp. As of right now, I would place this number 2 on my 2024 list behind Boji. This is really good stuff. If you're short attention span, you just want to check one track, go to YouTube and watch Pyramids. That is the track that got shared to me, and really cool tune. That's the first tune on the album. So it's meant to impress, and it does.
He's got my attention. He's holding a Les Paul on the cover. So right there, I'm like, all right.
Yeah, he's a Berkeley kid, Again, not really a super flash player, but man, he writes good tunes. So everybody check it out. Daniel Weiss, Vortex.
And George, speaking of Snarky Puppy, I know Letary has a release coming at the end of the month too.
It's alive, right?
You know what? I'm not sure. I don't think so. It's
okay.
Can I tell you something? Is the title of it? There are 2 tracks on Apple Music pre-release. I think it's coming out the end of July. So,
Well, we got Chadwick on next month. Maybe he'll give us some scoop. But yeah, that's it on new releases. So let's go to the square. This is a topic that of Eric's that he's proffered a couple of times. It's all about bands. Heavy fusion is how he introduced it. Me being a stickler, I'm like, you mean non-fusion? They're really not. A lot of these bands are not fusion to me, but as we go through them, we'll say whether we find this band fusion, and we'll say why or why not. You know, what about them strikes us as a fusion band or not a fusion band? So you got alphabetically, you got Aristocrats, Duck, Virgil Donati, In This Life, KBB, Proof of Concept, and Special Providence. Yeah, there you go.
Amazing.
So we like to start these things off with Eric, especially when it's his topic. There are good guitar players on all these, in my opinion, but I'm sure you'll let us know. What is your number 4?
Yeah, you definitely brought the guitar players back on this one, George. So, again, we preface every episode with how difficult this is, and it was definitely a very difficult 4. I'm going with KBB at 4. As much as I love the violin, I thought there's a few, and I don't want to say down moments. They're very melodic. They might be the mellowest of the 4 in terms of certain songs. I mean, I think having the violin, some really beautiful melodic lines. I think things like Way Anchor had that classical influence to it. The opener, Inner Flames, is killer. They're very powerful when they want to be. But I do think they allow for that really more melodic, laid back stuff to come in. An example of that, I think, was the third track, Stratosphere, starts out very atmospheric and melodic. And then towards the end of it, it really kicks in with some fire. Good sense of humor. I think that rice planting song almost goes like a country-ish route, a little bit off the wall. It's something you might even think the Dregs would do. Kind of interesting because it stands out as something that's really different from the rest of the material on this. And the closer, I think my favorite is Inner Flames. I did like the closer, Order for Chaos or Order from Chaos. That one seemed to be a little darker sounding than the rest. So there's a good variety here. And I'm going to have trouble with the question, George, I think, on these, because I do see where I think kind of the back section to this band, the drummer and the bass player, not that there's not a lot of complexity going on, but there's also a lot of times where they kind of lay back and the violin or the keyboard is carrying a lot of the melody and maybe not as intense as when we talk about the other 3. So I do see where this would be a band that maybe the violin coming out, everyone's going to be like, oh, that's fusion. But they definitely have a good, heavy, solid rock bass. And I think if you hear violin, and especially if you listen to that first track, they can be very heavy. I'm not talking metal, but I mean, they can be very heavy too, which I don't know that people would always put together with violin. But I do see where this is kind of a band that probably, this might have been one that I said to you, a fusion band, and you kind of gave me your look. Like, yeah, not so much, Eric, but I don't know. I don't know that I have a good answer for it, other than I just think that they really have a real mix of laid back stuff, heavy stuff. And in terms of the fusion question, I guess I could see where they might sit in that more of a rock category than a fusion spot. So, but that's my number 4.
All right. Let's go to our compadre, Lewis. What do you got at the 4?
Okay, well, this was very tough, I have to say. It's hard, but I think I'm also going to have to go with KBB. I love that band. I got a chance to see them play live in Baja, Prague, many years ago. They're great. They're really great. But they do have, and I love the way the opener and the closer, the 2 long, powerful pieces, they're just like a great bookends. Then they have that song, "The Rice Planting Son," that is kind of like the ELP joke throwaway thing to me. Not great. I don't know. I was much more familiar with Four Corner Sky, which is actually the only one I own. That I bought that at Baja. I love the band. I think. What's the name of the violinist? Tatsuboi or
Subo, yeah.
Well, yeah, that dude is fire, right?
Yep.
But it is a little too happy sometimes for my taste. And again, I just want to emphasize, these are tiny differences, right? When the quality is so high, you have to get petty to rank them, right? So for me, KBB would be the fourth, but only because it is a little. It's good stuff, and the compositions are great, but they do have a little moments of corniness, a little too. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I don't want people to think I hate Joy. I don't, but it's almost like a script. It seems sometimes like they decided, okay, we're trying all these things. Now we know how to resolve. Let's just do this. Right? That's what I would say. I like the record a lot. I don't know if I like it quite as much as Four Corner Sky, but it's quite good. That would be my number 4. Excellent. All these choices were great. When I first got them, I have to admit, now that the cat's out of the bag, I thought, these are fusion bands? Okay.
Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah. So and we also had in the just breaking the fourth wall here, there was a 5th record that you included, Meridian. Was it Meridian Province or something like that?
Meridian Voice.
Yeah, Meridian Voice. And I was very surprised about that one as well. So that's a good record, but we're not talking about that.
And we'll get to that one shortly.
Yeah.
What about it, Pete? You going to keep it going?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it going. This was really hard. These are 4 really, really good albums, and we can sit and go back and forth about whether they're fusion or not. Proof of Concept by KBB is also my number 4, and I got this when it first came out. I was pretty big into this band when they first kind of hit, and this band was initially kind of sold to me as kind of a prog band who does a little bit of fusion. That's really what they're all about. I think this is a terrific album. I think Suboi is a great violin player, and he's playing violin. The keyboard player's playing keyboards like a guitar player, the both of them. So there's plenty of sizzling stuff throughout this album. I love the opener In Flames. I love that big roaring Hammond organ and the lead violin and synth solos. I mean, that's just exciting stuff, big time. Stratosphere is monster. I hear a little on this album. I hear a little Dregs. I hear a little Kansas. I hear a little Mahavishnu. Of course, I'd say that because of the violin, right? But Lagoon Nebula is just kind of atmospheric and kind of majestic sounding, and then you got the really nice electric piano on 40 Degrees, and the bass player. We got to mention the bass player on this album. He's really, really good as well. I think he gets overshadowed by the other 2 dudes, but I think he's equally as great on this. And Order from Chaos, the closer, is just really, really good. I really like. I hate the fact that I have to put this at number 4 because it's a really good album. But something's got to go somewhere, right? So that's my number 4. But for folks watching, it's sitting at number 4 for almost everybody. We'll see if George kind of keeps it going. But I would say don't sleep on this album at all because it's really, really good.
Yes.
That's the level of greatness on these albums we're seeing. That something this good is sitting at number 4.
I am not going to keep it going. My number 4 is Special Providence, Soul Alert, 2012 release. I got to be honest. I hadn't listened to this in a while. So when I put it on, I ended up liking it, finding that I liked it less than I remembered. It's still good, but there are some influences here that are not there's a danceable element to a lot of it and danceable production tropes that I don't find appealing that much.
Really, there's no like techno dancing at George's house with this when this is on.
Yeah, some of the tones in that whole scene are just not up my alley, and I don't know. It's not a big deal, but to the extent that it exists, I don't care for it. I like that the heaviness of it. They're a heavy band. Most of these bands are pretty heavy, but that element I like about it. Good players, of course. They have a kind of an interesting track that some of these other bands don't. They have changed along the line. The first two records, Space Cafe and Labyrinth, I think those are real deal fusion albums. And then this came along, and they kind of incorporated this liquid tension kind of vibe with the dancey stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the middle somewhere. And then the last two, Essence of Change and Will, they added a lot of gent. So now I don't even think, I still see people calling them fusion, and I don't get it because it's so far from fusion now. Just don't understand. But, you know, people are, it's instrumental and it's complex. It's fusion. Well, not really. I don't hear any jazz elements here. I don't hear any improvisation. Not really fusion to me, but it's a cool record. But in this company, I put it at number 4. Eric?
Yeah, I'm going to follow you and put them at number 3. I liked, and I do hear what you're saying, but I kind of like the atmosphere that the keyboards put in, and in some of those songs where it does have that like maybe techno element. I thought it worked. I mean, Cortez Martin, I believe, is the guitar player. Fantastic. And they are heavy. So you have that contradiction where the keyboard player, I think he chose a lot of sounds that give him kind of a spacey atmospheric texture. And then you've got this guitar player who's roaring. And it kind of cracked me up because I had my stereo up when I put this on the first time and I hadn't played it in a while. And that first song, boy, that'll scare the shit out of you when you put that on and all of a sudden it comes blasting out of the speakers. I wasn't ready for it. So I kind of, I'm sitting there waiting for everything to get started, and it got me. And I think that that's Babel Confusion. That's a great tune. Lazy Boy and that's the track. I believe that the last track, they just put a vocal over it and gave it a different title. Obviously, I prefer the instrumental to the vocal track. It's the only
Really? I'm surprised you're saying that, Eric.
Why?
But I think Asparagus, there's some blazing guitar that I really loved. And again, I like the fact that there were some things, I think like K2 kind of goes the other way where it's more of an atmospheric quality. But I really like the soloing, the keyboard player and the guitar player here really do a lot of stuff. I mean, it even can be Floydy at times. I think that Incredible Flower kind of gave me a Floyd vibe. But again, like you said, with all four of and they all have a little difference to them. I mean, like I said, I think this one really has a lot of atmosphere to it, and yet at the same time, very heavy, great guitar work, great keyboard work. And, that's the stuff I focus on. Obviously a great band too, but, and I would say, if we're talking, I found them definitely to be more proggy with that kind of almost like a space atmospheric vibe to them than Fusion. Cause I think that guitar player seems like he's kind of more of a shredder. Not that he does some great solo work in there too, but he's got that shred quality to him. I think that, I don't know that I hear, and George, you might've mentioned it, like the jazzy phrasing. I don't know that I hear that in his playing, but I think his playing is phenomenal. So I'm going to go with Soul Alert by Special Providence at number 3.
Lewis, where are you headed?
Well, I swear we didn't coordinate, but that's also my number 3. I have to just say, at Columbia, when I teach and the students are doing labs, I normally play a record. So just go from station to station to help them, but we listen to stuff and make them listen to a record. And different record every lab, every week. And this one is a record that most of those kids love. They absolutely fucking love it.
Cool.
And I have to say, I do hear what you're saying. It's undeniable. This kind of more modern thing that they got going with a production. And I give a lot of credit to the keyboard player. I know these guys are Hungarian, right?
Yeah.
Because he did not pick any cheese. And this has always been a thing for me with Fusion. Like the keyboard subs that have these like really cheesy pads and things. The keyboard sounds are excellent all the way through, in my opinion. As mentioned, I didn't realize they had 2 previous records. I always thought of this one as the first one for whatever reason. And so out of the 3 that I have, this one was my least favorite. And I thought of them as a heavy instrumental prog band. Is how I think of them. But I love this record. I think Asparagus was mentioned. Lazy Boy is just such a great record, truly. Title track, all of it is it has a lot of earworms, which I think is a very good thing. And the musicianship is very high across the board. So everybody can play. I think it's a very joyful record. Even though, like I said, it's not really my thing. I like it. I think it works. It's very well done. It's not trying to make me smile. It's just trying to get these guys to be eligible to play in a wider format, which I think is what they achieved. And I enjoy it a lot. It's a very good album. And the younger people, they really dig it. I'm telling you, man, when I play them the Miroslav Virtuos or other things, they're looking at me like, what the fuck? But with this stuff, they really responded to it. So, it's a very good record. People, if you haven't heard this band, I highly recommend them. I know I'm going to be digging up those other 2 records, the previous ones. But it's a fantastic, and it's a youthful band too. So you can hear that in their playing. I like that. It's really high quality, and the songwriting, I think, the songs are more than a vehicle for a song. So that's also something I like. It's a great band, great album. Check it out. Everybody who watches this, your wives may even dig it.
I think, don't quote me, but I think Greg Walker has all these records. But.
Oh, okay. And Louis, I think I'd love to be in your class. I'd probably fail it, but
No, you wouldn't.
It'd be
I
fun.
don't want to learn the lesson, play more music, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's always new records. I hit these kids up with all kinds of stuff, from gentle giant to jazz, fusion, whatever I can, whatever I find that week, I'll just put it on the player. We do the lab.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Pete, you gonna follow?
I'm gonna follow. Special Providence, Soul Alert. I really like this. I think George kind of said it before. I could easily see this band on like a future album adding vocals to the entire album and being more of a prog metal or gent band, because they dabble a bit in that on this particular album. Not that I'd want them to definitely do that, but I'm just saying I could totally see them doing that and doing it very, very well. There's some great stuff on here. There's great soloing. There's great shredding on here. This is heavy. It's metallic. Asparagus and K2 that's kind of more of the standard fusion track, I think, on here. The drums on the Untold Chapter, and then that nice melodic guitar solo, so good. And I like how this guitar player goes from like this more metallic, like heavy, aggressive style, and then he'll drop in like this kind of like almost Wes Montgomery type little run, which he does on Babel Confusion. I think that's awesome the way he can kind of do that. Yes. Really good stuff. Good electric piano on that track too. I don't know. I really like this a lot. I like the fact this is a little heavier than some of the other ones on this list. But I think the other 2 just are a little bit more successful. But I really like, and I've heard I have one of their other albums as well, and I think it's a really, really good band. It'd be interesting to see where they go from here. Good album. Soul Alert number 3.
It's been 7 years since their last album, so I have no idea what they're doing.
It's a
The
long
keyboardist and drummer had a collaboration album after that, but I haven't heard from him since, so I'm not sure.
It's just hard to keep it going, guys. I'm just telling you from experience. It's hard.
Yeah, they're not making any money.
This is why I like the fact that they were trying to diversify. That's what it sounded like to me. If they get a heavier sound, they automatically have a wider palette of options as to where they can play. And obviously they are sincere in their heaviness. That's important, right? If you're just faking it, that's no good. But I love this band. I really, really hope people who watch this will give them a chance because they're great.
Yeah, and I even think what Pete said about the guitar player, the band is pretty adept at that too. I mean, they kind of change on a dime. It'll be pounding it in your face, and the next minute they kind of veer off and mellow out, and that's not easy to do. So they do that very well.
But that's the thing, right? I also see that at Columbia a lot with the music students. When they dig in and they start learning, they're lifting riffs, they're lifting ideas, and then they sort of collage. And I find that these guys do it very well. Mm-hmm. They really know how to make it flow. So they're sort of showing you that. I think maybe in that way they really are a fusion. Their fusion is that collage element, the way they put together little bits and pieces. It's not really jazz, I would say, but then again, this is like that question: is it prog? I don't know. I would just say it's really good music and really good players. The bass player is awesome. Drummer is great. Yeah, he really plays great, and keyboard player is phenomenal too. They're all great. If they don't have a vocalist like full time, I think it's because they haven't found somebody that has their level. That's also very hard to do. Find a good vocalist.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
yes, sir.
Well, my number 3 is the Aristocrats, Duck. This is probably my favorite from them other than Culture Clash. I really like this record. But I'm not totally sold on it. There's like a weird alternating thing. I like all the odd number tracks quite a bit, and then the even number tracks like I got some problems with. But this probably, more than any of these bands, is probably the band that gets lumped to fusion than the rest of these. And, you can talk to Mr. Golden about their fusion creds. It's not, he'll give you more than an earful about that. I think it's the strength, the reputation and strength of the individual players. These guys have all appeared on albums like that. So, there's a laziness. People are just going to say, oh, it's instrumental, they're fusion, but I don't really hear them as that. They're more of a fun instrumental prog band, a la Morgable, a la Cosmo Squad. Little fusion elements, but not full-blown. Favorite ones on this one are the Guthrie songs. I think he turned in some really good tunes for this one. It's kind of a mixed bag on every album. They all write 3 songs. Certain albums, like the first album, I thought Marco wrote the best songs. This one, I think it's Guthrie. He wrote the best songs here. It's a good record. I'm not the biggest fan of their humor side, like the dancey tune. That doesn't appeal to me as much as their more serious straight jams. But it's a good record. If you like the stuff before it, you got to get it. But I just like the other two quite a bit more than this. So. Eric?
All right. So my number 2, Virgil Donati, In This Life. This was kind of guitar heaven. That Marcus Fogley, Brett Garsed, Masachek, I think, is on it. Is Dennis Ham, the Protocol? He played with Protocol, right? The keyboard player.
Yeah.
There's just... and the interesting thing was, I guess outside of Planet X, I'd never listened to him that much that I know of. I mean, I'm sure he's been on stuff. I just haven't maybe checked out the credits. The album seemed on, because this is the first time I heard it, was listening for the show. And the first time through, I was like, God, that's really dense. There's just And for some reason, as I listened throughout the month, it really kind of seemed to open up to me. I got more and more into it as I listened to it, and listening to this kind of had that same vibe, I think, at times that Special Providence did. When you really listen to, there's a lot of keyboard stuff going on in the background that's maybe a little more atmospheric. There's some nice electric keys on some certain songs. But that Marcus Fogley, to me, just he blazes on the tracks he's on. The opening track, Rhythm Zero, fantastic. And I think there's a trade-off there, right? Is that Fogley and Garcid both have a solo in that?
I don't remember Garcid on this. Maybe I'm wrong.
I could check the credits again. I thought he was on at least one track. And I thought it was the first one, but I'll go back and look. 11, I thought that follows it up. Really impressive bass playing on that one. Again, it's got kind of that atmospheric keys going on, but this is very tight and intricate music. And there were some tracks that, I don't know if you guys got that same, like I think Paradise Lost almost was like a soundtrack music in certain sections. And then, there's different flavors in that one. There's a lot of electric keys. I think Red Air has more of the electric keys on it. Iceland, I thought was extremely, that one probably was one of my favorites. Electric keys, heavy riff to open that up. And just Donati just seems like such a precise, and I don't want to say mechanical because then people will, there's no feel or whatever, but there's so much precision in this when you listen to everything that's going on. I don't know. I thought this is probably the one that, not being familiar with it, I think this is the one that grew on me the most over the course of listening to the 4. Not that I didn't like it, but like I said, I think in the beginning I felt, geez, this is really dense. And for some reason over the course of the month, it just really opened up for me. So I'm going to go with this at number 2, Virgil Donati.
Yeah, Garcid's not on that first track. Fogley's doing
solo also, right?
Yeah, Alex Argento.
Yeah.
He's trading with him. Lewis, you gonna follow Eric again?
My number 2 is gonna be Aristocrats, Duck. This is a record that I'm a big fan of the band, primarily because I love their live shows. Whenever they go to Chicago, I always manage to see them. And this time that I thought I would not be able to because I'm here, guess what? They're playing tomorrow and I'm going. Mexico City.
There you go. Nice.
So I am keeping the streak alive. They're very entertaining live. The record, though, I will agree with George. Their comedy thing, it does wear thin. And it's a lot easier to pull it off live because you have the in-between song banter and all that. You can be a little goofy. And they're just so impressive that it's sort of, otherwise it's just like going to a clinic, right? They just sit there. It's not the same thing. But this record, as I listened to it throughout the month, it impressed me less than it became very familiar very fast, and it seemed to me to have a little bit more, and again, people don't crucify me. Well, do whatever the fuck you want, but it's a little more formulaic for them. I also agree that the best songs are by Guthrie, but some of the other ones, they didn't surprise me. Let's just put it like that. They're exactly what I expected from them, which is fine. I mean, they have that style, that power trio, instrumental rock, prog. I don't think there's any jazz, and in fact, Guthrie makes jokes about that on stage. He'll suddenly start playing. Well, if we were to play this song in the jazz style, and then he'll do the voicings for the chords, right? So he's funny like that, and they're all very entertaining. Marco Miniman is one of the funniest guys I've ever met. He's a really fun guy. Hang out, have a beer, but then you watch him play, and it's like, holy shit. Beller. I mean, what can you say about Brian Beller, right? He's also, he played with Keneally, he's played with Death Clock, so many artists. I've seen him play like little pubs, backing up I think his wife is a singer. He did that, here in Chicago, the Red Line Pub. I saw them there. He's a phenomenal dude. So they all bring it. They all bring huge chops to the table. But this one just didn't. I don't know. And also the whole story of the duck. It's kind of like that's the other thing. It pretends to be like a concept album. It's like the journey of the duck. And again, I don't get it. So this is my number 2. But it's just such high quality in other regards. It imposes itself. They really play their instruments great, all of them. And there is a skill to it that is undeniable. So also, I'm a fan of the band, so there's a little bit of that loyalty. But it's not their best record, I don't think. I prefer Culture Clash for sure. And that's my number 2.
My number 2 is Virgil Donati, In This Life. There's not much that separates my number 1 and 2. I've gone back and forth all week leading up to today, trying to figure out which one. But I'm going to go with this one. This one is the newest one to me out of all of these. I don't think there's a weak track here. I think it's very, very impressive. Eric mentioned this whole kind of like cinematic kind of movie score feel. That does permeate a few tracks on here, which I think is really cool. Is he's doing these kind of big keyboard orchestrations, which I think is pretty interesting. But man, there's some smoking guitar solos on this album from, Matchsec and Marco, and that this guy Alex Argento is a great keyboard player. I love Voice of Reason. Fall of Dreams is so good. Paradise Lost might be my favorite track on here. That's just absolutely incredible. 11 is really good, and this bass player Evan Marion, he's the real deal too. Really, really good on here. I love Rhythm Zero, Red Air, The Empire. I mean, you could just list every track on here. This is really good. I happen to like Virgil solo stuff. It was really hard for me to try and figure out where to put this one. But my number 1 kind of is my number 1. So this is a great album. I think to me, this was the one I really enjoyed listening to the most out of these 4 because it was brand new to me. It just really, really strong stuff. I could even see this at some point in time being my number 1, kind of looking back on this today. But yeah, great stuff. And Virgil's drumming, like Eric mentioned, is just so solid and so like precise. And you don't want to call him robotic because we know he's not. I've seen him live, and he's just a machine. And just the precision of his playing is just jaw dropping. And I'm not a guy who like pays attention to drummers all that much, but yeah, he's something else. So yeah, it's my number 2.
My number 2 is the KBB. I really like the stretch starting in the middle with Rice playing sung. That kind of reminds me of the Bash from the Dregs.
That's exactly what I thought, George. Yep.
Establish like a breakneck tempo, and then doing all these sick trades. And yeah, it's kind of funny because it's kind of like an ethnic sitting around the campfire that kind of feel, but it's really.
But it comes from Japanese people. It makes it funnier, right? It's like what you imagine that might be like,
Yeah. Lagoon Nebula is another favorite, and 40 Degrees that run there 5, 6, 7, which is a weird place for the meat of the album. But I do love the opener and closer, the big epics, Inner Flames, like people mentioned, that monstrous B3 tone.
Yeah.
I just find it's a really consistent record. There are some moments where I'm feeling like I'm listening to a fusion band, and some moments where it's proggy. I mean, this is a true prog fusion borderliner to me. Out of all these bands in the square, I would say this one it makes me think. But I mean, this is another band too that's been inactive for, I think Age of Pain came out in 2013, so you might have to say maybe they're done, but that's a real shame because I enjoyed most of their stuff, and this one especially. So, and like was mentioned, Akihisa Sugoi on violin, he's really expressive. I mean, when that dude bends it, you can really feel it. I mean, I think people will be into this album just for that. Yeah, he rips too, but he can really make you feel it. So if you haven't heard KBB, you got to check this out.
Agreed.
Great.
Eric, let's
All
hear
right.
about you.
Well, obviously, it's been unveiled already, but I'm going with the Aristocrats at number 1. And I do think, George, from my standpoint, probably because of the musicianship and just, being a newbie, if someone had asked me, I probably would have thrown a fusion label out on these guys. But I do think, having sat back and listened and being that was the point of our discussion, and Lewis said everything. I mean, the chops these guys have are incredible. And I got to go back and listen now because you guys mentioned Culture Clash. And I think since I've had this has been what I've been playing pretty consistently. I think there's some of the stuff I like on here, like the opener, Where's My Drink Package. And I hate to say anything that it's simple, but the riff, like to me, was just like, this is perfect. It's a great riff. And then they just kind of go off and do their thing playing wise. And I love that. I know we won't be hearing Arista Club cranked in George's house. That's probably the techno skipper for George. But I think kind of throughout, and again, shame on me. I don't know that I sat and went through and saw who wrote what. So now I'm intrigued. I want to go back and look at the songs that I liked and see who actually wrote them. I didn't look at that. But I think some of the other
more on reading credits.
Yeah, I know. Right. I got to start doing that again. But I think the only one that kind of didn't sit great with me is Muddle Through. That was kind of the only track where I'm kind of like, I think everything else just has that combination that these guys, their work together, Beller and Miniman together. Even the last one, I was playing the last track the other day, This Is Not Scrotum. And my wife's listening to that and she's like, what the hell's going on in this one? It's like a waltz. And then it's, they get into, it's just crazy, but it's terrific. And
do you hear a little Marvin in that one?
I do, definitely.
Yeah.
Without the sax, right? I mean, if you had sax, you'd be like, yeah, this is Marvin. I think Slideshow, I love that. The guitar intro to that one. I think there's just some great riffs on this record too. And then they just take that riff and go off. But I love these guys. Unfortunately, they're not coming near me on this tour. And I'm really bummed out. And I'm still trying to find maybe a date where I can, if I feel like taking a drive and go see them, they're really not anywhere close. And I'm really bummed out about that. So
it's worth it, man.
I know.
They usually play at Daryl's house, but they're not on this tour. They're playing a gig in New York City, and I think you got a conflict that day. So I'm like thinking, can I swing it? I'm like, I don't know.
I'd love to see them. I've never seen them, so they're in Buffalo. They're kind of just skirting around where I am the whole time. So maybe we'll see.
Lewis, what's your number 1?
It has to be the Virgil Donati. That album for me was, it was immensely. It was like a kick to the solar plexus. That opening track, Rhythm Zero, and again, people just to address the thing about Donati being hyper technical. Yes, he is. As a matter of fact, when he played at Nearfest. I believe he was at Planet X.
Yep.
He did a drum solo that had the most astonishing use of cymbal bells I've ever heard in my life. The dude just played this delicate melody with all the bells of his cymbals that was amazing. And I don't know how anybody can hear him do that and then go ahead and say he's a fucking robot. Just to say. I mean, he's just worked in his technique to a point where he can actually just do whatever he wants to the drums. On top of that, he's also a great composer. I think most of the tunes on this record he wrote, and they're great. And the icing on the cake for me was not only did it get better with each listen, but it's one of those records that just keeps revealing more little things.
Oh yeah.
but also I like that there's like a concept behind it. There is this whole thing of let's protect what we have while we still have it. It's if you read the booklet, which I realize most people don't, but I'm not dissing on you, Eric. Relax.
That's my bad.
No. But if you read the booklet, they have a little paragraph for each one of the tracks, explaining its significance and what they were trying to accomplish. Now, whether or not what you hear gels with the message, that is all subjective. But I like the fact that it had that. It is very cinematographic. It is sort of like a soundtrack for the possible end of the world, and it's a plea to try to make things better. So for me, it's a whole package. It's everything I like in an album. It's great songwriting. Every single player has been mentioned. The guitarists are crazy good. They just, and Donati knows how to create space for them to all right, go. And they go, right? Everybody, when they get a solo spot, they go. But then he brings it back together, and even the solos, they happen over non-filler. I don't know if that makes any sense. Again, it's a lot of the time it's a very simple chord progression. Oh, he's doing Lydian mode. Okay, he's doing this, he's doing that. This is actually more than that. It's very interesting stuff, and I love this record. And the thing with Donati is, as I found, I've always sort of looked away from him for some reason. I don't have very many of his albums, but I'm going to be changing that because this is really good stuff. Yeah. If you like heavy prog, if you like atmospheric music, if you like an almost impossibly good drummer, you should definitely check this out. Everybody's great, but it's the songwriting somehow to me is the star of the show, and that's something that I think Donati should get a lot of credit for, because he's usually viewed as just this robot drummer, and he's so much more than that. I love that album, so kudos to Virgil, Donati, and everybody for putting this together. Easily my favorite. Although they were all great, but this one just kept getting better and better. I can't name a specific track. I'm just saying the first one, the opener, was just so good that I had to play it over a few times.
The title track, Louis, is fantastic too.
They're all great. So I can't say enough good things about that record. It had a lot of surprises, which was my only thing with the previous one, the Aristocrats, the Duck. I didn't find it had that many surprises, but this one does. And I love that. Great record.
Pete?
Well, obviously by process of elimination, Duck by the Aristocrats is my number one. I love these guys. I think all three of them together, they're drop dead virtuosos. And having them in this four square is interesting because I honestly don't know how to classify these guys because they don't really fit anywhere. Are they kind of prog? Yeah, I guess not really. Are they kind of fusion? Not really. To me, they're just a very kind of sophisticated form of instrumental guitar rock, kind of like, instrumental guitar rock, kind of like Satriani and Vi. But I think that they add their sense of humor, the way they make these songs fun is what really appeals to me. Because, there's some tracks on here like Hey, Where's My Drink Package, and Aristoclub especially. They're just so catchy, and they're just blazing away, but they make it fun sounding. This is like what I really used to love about like early Satriani albums, is he had these like really fun instrumental kind of rock oriented songs that just kind of grabbed you. I don't find Joe's more recent albums kind of do that. And here you got like three guys that are just, they're on the same page with like what they want to do, which I think is great. The Sergeant Rockhopper's got great grooves, and Guthrie's playing. I'm a guitar guy, right? Guthrie is one of the best in the world, and he never fails to just make my jaw scrape along the floor, and it's just crazy. Here Come the Builders, so much fun. I love the the big last part, which I think is really good. There's like this Middle Eastern stuff on This Is Not Scrotum. I mean, I find that I like all their albums. I find there's more memorable bits on this record that kind of hook me in and make it a little bit easier to listen, because some of their albums are very demanding, because there's some like improv-y stuff, and they switch gears left and right all the time. Some of it's kind of avant-garde-ish, some of it's just kind of spacey. Here, I think that it's through and through, it just grabs me all the way through, and I love the guitar tones on the album, and it's just great sounding record. It's fun and it's impressive at the same time. So yeah, Aristocrats, Duck, my number one.
I mean, Satriani had Beller and Miniman as a rhythm section for a while, and the keyboard second guitarist was fucking Mike Keneally.
Yeah.
So there was a time when going to see a Satriani show was, I saw them do that at the Chicago Theater. It was incredible.
I mean, Joe's always great live. I don't find Joe's studio albums all that interesting anymore, and I haven't for a while. I feel bad about it too, because I think he's a fantastic player. I don't know. It's just, to me, it seems like every studio album just kind of sounds like more of the same, whereas his early albums were always really fresh and exciting and just catchy and memorable. And I just don't get that as much anymore. Maybe because he hasn't mixed it up enough over the years. I don't know. And it's one of the reasons why I always like Vi a little bit more when it came to studio stuff, because, even though Vi's stuff was never as easy a listen as Joe's, I think Vi, every album was something completely out there and just totally different. Whereas Joe just kind of has this formula, and he just kind of keeps doing it over and over again. They're both amazing players, but you go see any of these guys live and you're going to be wowed, right? Of course. But I always take the studio albums as kind of like, I put a lot of stock in those. Like, well, here's where they're creating their original music, right? So, but I find this Aristocrats album just very, very catchy and very memorable.
I agree with you that stylistically they're kind of like a Guitar Hero album, but they have a band aesthetic. It's not all about the guitar. They share the spotlight. And they're a little better than a lot of guys on those albums. So the prog, advanced prog feel with Guitar Hero album kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, my number one is Donati. I'm with Lewis. This album is a masterpiece. He wrote all of it, every note. Incredible. To me, he's a much better composer than he is a drummer, and that's a big statement. But the guy's a great writer.
Yes.
I agree with what Eric's saying. It is he does play mechanically in comparison to a fusion guy. He's not a fusion guy. Can he handle it? Of course, he can do anything, but he's not a natural. He doesn't have that feel that a fusion guy has. You're not going to listen to a Virgil album and go, "Is this Dave Weckl?" No, it's not. He doesn't have that quite feel. But I mean, it's his writing. He matches his playing with the writing, so that. For this kind of stuff, his playing is great. I would agree with Pete. My favorite track here is Paradise Lost. Those two, Paradise Lost and The Fall of Dreams, those orchestral flavored tracks, they both have Alex Makashik on there. Those are incredible. He had a really good time with it, and then he did a whole album of that stuff after this, which is frankly less compelling than this stuff is. That was a real deal orchestra, where this is samples and stuff. I mean, it doesn't sound totally like an orchestra, but the feel is there, soundtrack-ish, like Eric said. The thing with this one that it gets mistaken for fusion all the time is because the soloing is fusionistic, and the guys are fusion players for the most part. Not Spogli so much, but all these other cats, Jeff Babco, Alex Argento, all these guys. The bass players on this album, I had never heard of any of them at this point. Evan Marion, Anthony Crawford, and Doug Shreve. They were all a revelation to me at the time this came out, and they're all killer. Great players.
Yep.
Red Air was actually released as a single. It's kind of funny thinking about that, but they did put it as a video single at the time, and that one is a little more straight than most of these other tunes, but most of this stuff is it's very worked out, very precise. Like people said, precise a lot. It's very worked out to the nth degree. Another reason why it never struck me as fusion, because that's a little more free flowing than this stuff is. very very worked out, but it has to be. I mean, there's so much odd time on this. It's not even funny. And the other thing that never struck me as fusion about it is the amount of chug playing on guitar. He likes his heavy stuff. This thing is full of chugs. I mean,
Yes.
that's like a prog metal standard, and they sound really, really good. I mean, this is a production masterpiece. The songwriting, this one's got it all for me. So that was my easy number one too.
Yeah.
So George's pick. Meridian Voice, Atypical Symmetry. It's an East Coast based quartet. One and done. They never did anything else after this. This is 2010, 2011, I believe. But I thought it was pretty interesting to throw out there. What'd you think, Eric?
Well, Lewis stole my line earlier because I think when I first put this on, I'm like, this is going to be too happy for him. I guess, and also I think, Pete, with your series for July, as I listened to this was like, it's catchy. And I don't want to say light, that's the wrong word, but I'm like, this is a good summer record, sitting outside, listening to it. I thought it was an easy listen, and I don't mean easy in terms of background music, but I don't know, this one, it's catchy. Maybe I think we used the term for one of the ones in the discussion today that it's very song based. The first one that hit me was Hacker, because I think that's the third track. And after I'd listened to the first two, that one I'm sitting there going, okay, this is getting intricate. There's a lot going on in here. Maybe more so than the opening two tracks, but I thought the opening two tracks were quite catchy. And then For Eddie has some great guitar work. That one also kind of a laid back feel, but I really love the guitar in that. Dream State, same thing, some really nice guitar solos, the electric piano. There's also some nice organ in that one. So I felt like as the record kind of went along, I'm like, okay, here's where the more intricate stuff was coming through. I think the closer, I Know Things, that had some fantastic keyboard work in it. But this one, and I think you guys mentioned, or even the wife might like listening to one of those. I was out listening with Joyce a couple times outside, and she didn't tell me to turn it off. So I figured I was doing, this one's okay for her. But I think, and to go along kind of with the theme of is it or isn't it fusion, again, I'm probably not the one to ask, but I did hear a lot more intricate playing and as things went along. There's a couple songs that I was like, okay, here we go. And I know that's not necessarily, the point of, you've got instrumental stuff and the intricate playing, but there were a few things I thought. I mean, I thought Hacker kind of had maybe some fusion influence in there. And, I loved the guitar work. Once he got to shine more than I expected, I think, when I first started listening to the album. But very song-based, well-written songs, catchy. I liked it. I don't know that it's something, it's not something I own. When George throws these out, sometimes I try to buy them. I found this one on Apple Music, but I've been listening to it quite a bit. I thought it was really well done. Very good stuff.
Lewis, is it too friendly sounding for you or what?
I think so, and it goes back to even the way they present themselves in their mugshots. Like the bass player is sitting there, he's like looking at his Fodera bass. And it's like the bass is bigger than his head, and he's just like not even looking at the camera, just looking at the fretboard.
There it is.
Right there. So that made me chuckle. It attempts to be funny, but in a less adolescent way than Aristocrats. I mean, this title alone, Bris Scenes from an Italian Jewish Restaurant. Now, we don't have Ken with us right now, but I do believe a bris is where they circumcise a baby. I'm going to let that sit there. Okay. Yet, it's the record, it does have the cardinal sin of fusion albums, which is that some of the keyboard sounds are really Velveeta for me. Not they don't appeal. The keyboard player is great, and it is very happy. I was very surprised to hear Randy McStein play that kind of music. I know he did that other stuff with Marco Miniman, and I'm not saying he doesn't have chops. Obviously, he's got them in spades, but he also looks very young in that picture, right? He looks like he's just happy to be there, and he's just making his best attempt at a guitar face, right there. So it's a fine record. I would also say that probably my favorite tune is Hacker. I heard things. I mean, it has some interesting titles, but I don't necessarily, they say I heard things, and I really didn't. It was more of a, I don't know, formulaic, for lack of a better term. But it's a good record. Listen. You can do a lot worse than pick up a copy of this if you want to start moving towards jazzier things. This is not really jazz, but it's not really rock either. So I think, there's going to be some chordal textures that are not traditional for just a rock listener, and it may be a very nice stepping stone sort of a thing into that direction. And certainly, it's very friendly, isn't it? It's not gonna jar you like Mahavishnu or some of the other stuff that's really out there. Yeah, I dig it.
Pete, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to like this album. I think this is kind of like fusion light / rock, so to speak. And they're a bunch of New York dudes, right? And I think they have that kind of mentality. I could just picture like this band playing like at South Street Seaport, like in the middle of the summer or something like that. And there's good vibes all over the place, which is cool. The guitar player is Randy McStein. He's really good. For Eddie's this kind of cool melodic piece, and all of a sudden he comes roaring in with a really cool guitar solo. He's really good on Dream State as well. There's some cool like funky bits on the album, like Swing Shift. That's kind of funky. It's got a cool organ solo. I don't know. I get a lot of New York vibes on this album, and it's just like I said, it's like fusion light, funky rock stuff. It's very enjoyable. Are any of us going to claim this as being a classic? I don't know about that, but it's definitely, I could easily recommend this to anybody who's maybe looking to get into kind of like this style of music and wants something to kind of ease them in. It's very pleasant, good production, good playing. It's good. It's fun. I like it.
Yeah, you guys put it all together. It's this is another good example of a prog fusion borderliner. It's got a little flavors of both. It's really goes down easy. My favorite track is our Hacker and Kitty. Bass player wrote both of those, so he's a guy wish I'd heard more from. But Kitty's got a section in it that almost sounds like something off of a McAlpine album, like the melody, the way that whole breaks down, it kind of lends to that. They cover a lot of different ground. Very friendly sounding recording. Like you guys said, a good starting point for someone that, wants to be on the border of the two. Doesn't want a fuse fest, but maybe wants something a little less played out than an instrumental rock album. So, yeah, I think it's good. For what it's worth, it was something I got out of my Fusion Traders list. It got brought up there, so it does appeal to straight Fusion fans as well. So, I would suggest people check it out. It's probably a Discogs find at this point, but yeah, cool record.
Yeah, definitely.
For everybody watching, you've got 4 albums to rank from what we were just doing, right? So replicate what we did, and then you got this cool George's pick to take a listen to as well. So Gary Joyce, get everybody in line. Make sure everybody adds that down in the comments below. George, you want to give a little hint of what's to come next month?
Yeah, we gonna have back one of our the biggest supporters of the channel, Mike Chadwick. Did our UK region episode, and we've been dying to have him back. We had just a lot of stuff backlogged, so bringing him back next month, and we'll leave the topic to consideration. We'll see.
There you go. More to come on that, everybody. So
yeah.
And we do want to thank. We love having Lewis on the show here as always.
Always a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I love this show. I always learn. You guys gave me 4 great albums to listen to, and the Donati was just such a treasure. So,
and that was new to you. The Donati was.
Yeah, I'd never heard it. I didn't even know about it, and that's why I said Donati somehow always manages to flow beneath my radar. You know, I just never pick up on his albums. This is just you said it best. This album is a masterpiece. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, I mean, prog fans should get into it. Fusion guys, maybe, well, this is not jazz, whatever. Listen to it. And you will be challenged. It's not 3-chord rock. No. The arrangements are incredible. It is a hyper composed album. There's no spur of the moment improvisation at all. But when the composition is of such high quality, that is to be appreciated, I think. So, yeah.
So cool. And we look forward to seeing all 4 of us together once again on In the Prog Seat very, very soon. So
absolutely.
Till then, we'll see you next month here on 4Fusion Friday. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together. All the time. Coming up here this weekend on the channel, of course, we've got the review crew with Jamie Laszlo and a new crew this week that's coming up tomorrow. And then Sunday, Grant Arthur and I will be ranking the solo albums of Dennis DeYoung, former singer and keyboard player from Styx. So that's coming up this weekend. Lots happening. And then, of course, Hudson Valley Squares on Monday. So till then, I am Pete Pardo for Louis Nasser, Eric Porter, and George Lamie. Thanks for watching 4Fusion Friday. Thank you so much for continuing to support this show. We know the folks who watch it love it. We're going to continue to do it. So tell your friends, all your Fusion fanatic friends, spread the word, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Awesome.